Hey guys, Alistair with Team Top Cut here. I wanted to sort of do a fun little tier list video on what I think the best decks are going into YCS Rhode Island and as well as the rest of early Alliance Insight format. I personally will be going to YCS Rhode Island this weekend. I haven't decided what I'm going to play yet, but I sort of thought it would be fun to yap about what I think the best options are for the format. And yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna get into it. So I have four sort of tiers, if you will, that I've decided to cover. I have what I think are the best decks, decks that I think are a good choice for this event or the format in general, decks that I think are decent but not as good as the decks up here, and decks that will probably get you sent straight to side events. Like, do not bring these decks to the main event. I don't think you'll have a good time, unless you really like those decks. But I'm gonna start off with, what I think are the best decks. So Malice is kind of the boogeyman that everyone's been sort of talking about in preparation for this format, and it's very strong. If it gets to play, you probably lose going first, and it's just extremely powerful. The new Alistair cards really helped that deck a lot, and it lost some consistency on the ban list, but a lot of the time it just doesn't matter. I will say though, the fact that this deck has a huge target on its back means you're going to be seeing cards like Artifact Lancia, Chaos Hunter, cards like Artifact Sanctum, and a lot of those hate cards are really strong to this deck, so sometimes it can feel like games are just out of your control, but that being said, it's kind of offset by the fact that it's just so much stronger than every other deck in the format that this is probably just the best deck, hands down. I think if I were to put the next best deck, it would probably be Mitsurugi Ryzeal. The new Mitsurugi cards are just so good for that deck. Like, they don't really add that much to the end board, but they make it just so much more consistent, and this deck is really scary if it gets to go first and play, and it's also pretty solid at going second. Like, if you can hand trap decks into a half board, this deck sort of will rip through boards, and it's very scary. It does lose the droll, but this deck is just so strong if you don't get drolled that I think that doesn't necessarily matter, especially since Droll is not really that good into this deck in particular. So I think that, this deck is these two decks are really scary. I think Malice is definitely the stronger of these two, but do not sleep on this deck. This deck is very scary. All right, we're gonna look at Blue Eyes now. I'm kind of a Blue Eyes hater. It's like a solid deck, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good as these two, obviously, but I mean, it's still, it's gonna be a very popular choice because it's Blue Eyes and a lot of people had the deck already. I'll put it at like bottom of great choice or like top of decent. I might move this later, but we'll see what happens. This is Ryzeal Fiendsmith. I honestly forgot about this deck, I'm not gonna lie. Kind of crazy because it was like the best deck last format, but it lost a lot of the starters because in that deck you really needed to see Bonfire or Ice, because like if you started with X, then you just didn't get to your Fiendsmith cards, or started with Sword, etc. So the deck just lost a lot of starters. That being said, Caesar is a crazy card this format, especially if you make it through like a couple hand traps. So I don't know. This deck is still good. I'm putting it in decent. It's just not as good as, actually, you know what? It's probably a great choice. I'd play this before I play Blue Eyes. Memento. I've actually been meaning to talk about this deck for a while. There's a video on that in the works. This deck is scary as hell. I'm not gonna lie. This deck is really scary when it gets to play, and it can play through like a lot of things. It does lose to itself a lot though. You got 5 bricks in there. Akihiron, Gaddock, all those cards. Drawing those cards, any Memento player will tell you that the hands where you draw like 3 bricks in a hand trap, just so sad. But this deck is really good. It plays through a lot of interaction. That being said, the Malice matchup is a little bit rough. So I don't know. I think if Malice is the best deck, it can be a little coin flippy, but I mean, I play this, honestly, I play this above Blue Eyes and, what is it called? Ryzeal Fiendsmith. I think this deck is like crazy if you get to play. Yeah, I just think Memento's a solid choice. Why is there just a picture of Lubellion in here? Kristron! So remember how I said that Malice being the best deck means a lot of people are going to be playing just like targeted hate for this deck? People have been playing Lancia, and Lancia is really good into this deck, though people have been like using it incorrectly against this deck in my testing, because a lot of people will shotgun Lancia against this deck, and you're not supposed to do that because they can sort of play around it in some hands if they know it's there. I don't know. This deck has Kashtira cards in it, and Unicorn's really good, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in decent because I don't think it's like a bad deck, but It isn't nearly, I think when Malice is the best deck, it's not as strong as Malice, but also loses to all of the same things that Malice does, so it is kind of an awkward choice. But that being said, this deck has crazy recursion, and the board is pretty solid, so like, I mean, it's a decent choice. I'm gonna put it in decent. It's not like that bad. Another water deck, Mermail. Mermail is still pretty scary, I think. I haven't gotten much of a chance to play against this deck. Post Alliance Insight, I've been told it's not as good, but I mean, if it gets to play, it's still probably pretty scary. Still struggles with consistency issues. That hasn't changed at all. I'd still probably play it before Blue Eyes, though, I'm gonna be honest though. I'm gonna put it at like above Blue Eyes, but below Fiendsmith Ryzeal. I'd probably play this. Actually, no, I played this before. I played Mermail before Fiendsmith Ryzeal. This deck is still scary when it pops off, and it can go second pretty well. It just bricks. Dragon Ruler. So I wanted to include some of the decks that got support in Alliance Insight, and this is a pretty fan favorite deck. I want to like this deck, but it's going inside events. This deck is terrible. I'm sorry. Like, every time I play against this deck, it is Turbo the Kristja or Turbo the Kawakimeru Drago, because, you know, Tidal can send any monster to the graveyard, and Redox can revive any monster from the graveyard, and the new rank 7 lets you copy the effect of any Dragon Ruler. So you use both, you Turbo the Floodgate. Also, Kawakimeru is a dragon, so you can search it. It's a wind dragon, so you can search it. I don't know. It's not even just that, but also just like every dragon, I don't have a Dragon Ruler list to show you right now, but every Dragon Ruler deck list I've seen has like 9 non-engine slots, and that's just not enough in this format. So I'm sorry, this deck's not it. I'm sorry to all my Dragon Ruler fans, but it's not good enough. Malice Fiendsmith, I mean, you're playing Malice cards, you're playing Fiendsmith cards, probably a good choice, but I don't think you need the Fiendsmith cards anymore, especially since they conflict with Dominus Impulse, which if you weren't already aware, Dominus Impulse is like one of the best cards in the upcoming format. I don't know. I don't think you need to put Fiendsmith cards in this deck anymore. You're already, like, the new Agnister cards do a lot, but I mean, it could still do things, but I don't think you need these cards anymore. This is the Fiendsmith Primite Bestial deck. Dude, I don't know. Because Regained is really scary when you set it up. And like, Fiendsmith cards are good, especially if you have Caesar. And like, Primite cards are always good, but Bestials aren't as good in this upcoming format because, I mean, you still get to use them against Malice sometimes, but they're just not like consistently good against that deck. I don't know. I'm gonna put it in decent because like it's not like terrible. It's definitely better than Dragon Ruler for sure, but like I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this one. So this is just sort of a stand-in for all the like Fiendsmith piles, sort of cash Fiendsmith. All the Fiendsmith piles aside from this deck and Live Twin, which we'll get to Live Twin in a little bit, but I mean, it's probably decent, I guess. You're playing Fiendsmith cards, whatever sub-engine you want, and a ton of hand traps, a ton of non-engine. Can't really go wrong with that. Not really much to say here. Fire King. I actually really like Fire King as a deck. I think this deck is really cool. It's kind of bricky, but it is very good into Mulch armies. And those are probably gonna be pretty popular. I'm gonna put it in like top of decent. It can play Impulse too, so that's like also really good. I think it's better than any of these three. Is it better than Blue Eyes? I would say so, but I'm a Blue Eyes hater. And you also have to be like, you have to play perfectly with this deck also, so like, that's another thing about Memento and like decks like this and this and this, and Mermail too a little bit. You kind of have to play these decks perfectly. They're kind of unforgiving. So like, if you're like 9 rounds into a YCS, you might struggle a little bit, you know, that fatigue setting in, and you know, you might make some mistakes that lose you matches. So something to think about when picking decks, but it's a decent choice if you're like good at this deck, but I don't know if I'd recommend this to like a beginner. You have to be really good with this deck, but it's solid. At Agnister. So some of you might not know this, but back in the day, I was a huge At Agnister player. I played this deck a lot, especially when like Branded was one of the best decks, because that deck just couldn't really reliably out 4,000 attack Arrival at Agnister, and it was really funny to just summon this card at locals and watch people sort of flail and try to out it. And yeah, it was just good. It was funny. I like this deck a lot. It's going inside events though. This deck is worse than Malice at what it wants to do. It is coming from a bygone era of decks that are not very good in Tumultuous armies, but also aren't that oppressive of an end board. I mean, the end board's probably crazy oppressive now, but like, it's just not. This deck has too many. This deck has no plan in Tumultuous armies, and it's just generally loses to every hand trap. Not worth it. I'm gonna talk about this deck first. Live Twin. This deck's been getting some traction lately. You know, it's a Fiendsmith pile, but it plays very differently than most of the other Fiendsmith piles that are out there right now. It's pretty solid. I think it's like decent. I think this probably goes top of decent. It's not like, I will say that the downside to this deck is that if your opponent knows what the Live Twin cards do, then you're at a massive disadvantage. Because one, this deck doesn't really have a game plan into Fua. Like, if Fua resolves, you're kind of in a pickle, because this deck summons from the extra deck a lot. But also, like, I mean, you control yourself in this deck and it's like fine, but it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest. The other thing is that, well, like I said before, if your opponent knows what Live Twin cards do, if they've read Lila's Suite and know that like they can use it to negate any interaction on your normal summon, basically, you can sort of play around that accordingly, and I don't know. It just puts you at a disadvantage. But that being said, this deck it's still decent. It plays Fiendsmith cards. It plays like 20 hand traps, and you know, a lot of 1-card starters too. So that's always good. This is Labyrinth. This is the alt art lady or lovely. I don't remember which one it is, but the alt art. I'm putting this inside events. I'm sorry. It's probably like the best of these decks so far inside events, but I think unless you're like a god level pilot with this deck, it's just tough. Especially because like the best deck, Malice, threatens Lingaribo a lot, and that's something you have to play around a lot with this deck. Labyrinth does not. I played a lot of Labyrinth myself, actually. I'm nowhere near as good as like Ryan Yu or any of the, you know, the real Labyrinth goats, but like I played my fair share of Labyrinth. Labyrinth is a deck that does not do very well in formats that are unsolved, because the way you win with Labyrinth is you figure out what the best decks are / the most represented decks, and you tailor all your non-engine, well, I guess all your non-engine is traps, but like all your traps are kind of engine, but like all your trap cards, you tailor your entire deck to beat the best decks, or the most popular decks. And if you aren't really able to concretely identify what those are, and also you have to play perfectly. If you don't do both of those things, then this deck doesn't really do well. That being said, I mean, maybe there's a time like later in the format when it's actually solved that this deck might be able to do better, but I think there's a bunch of other cards coming out, like the Orcus support or whatever, and like a bunch of other decks that are coming out that like make the format even wider before Nats. So like, I don't know. This deck is probably not worth it for now, as much as I hate to say it. Pure Mitsurugi. Okay. Let's see. I tested Pure Mitsurugi, and it's a cool deck. I wanted to like it, but a lot of the time the deck just doesn't have enough of a, like, this deck needs a sub-engine. It needs a secondary push. And I don't like, the Ogdoadic cards are cool, but you have to put too many bad cards in your deck for that to work. And it's just not worth it for like a tournament setting. But that being said, like, this deck is pretty scary if you get to play also. Like, I mean, going first, you probably beat Malice if your ritual spells resolve, but I don't know. This deck is, I want to like it. The other problem that I noticed when I was testing this deck is that if your opponent knows you're on Pure Mitsurugi, they can just end on Cyber's Wicked, and your Murakumo doesn't do anything to their board. Which, I mean, in this deck, you can go Special X and deal with the Murakumo that way. But this deck doesn't really have the answer to that. So I'm gonna put it at like, you know, I'm a hater. I play this before Blue Eyes though. If you think I'm biased and think this goes like here, that's probably fine, but I'll put it here. Odeon, the Tomb Keeper deck. See, I hate this deck. I really do. I think this deck's cool. I feel like I always lose to this deck, but it's going inside events, I think. I think the problem with this deck is that out of YCS, this deck is horrible at going second, is the first thing. Especially into a deck like Malice. Like if Malice gets to play, this deck is never doing anything. Even if you put Fiendsmith cards in this deck, it's just not enough. I'm sorry. It's not enough. Oh, this Regenesis. Oh god. I hate this deck. I mean, I don't hate this deck. Let me rephrase that. This deck is so disappointing. I want to like this deck because I love Kashtira and I want Kashtira cards to be playable, and they are in this deck, but I think this deck, everyone shows me, and every time someone shows me a deck with Regenesis cards in it, it just seems bad. I'm sorry, like this deck is bad. I was testing Malice, and first off, this is a deck that wants to play board breakers, right? And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think board breakers are that good into the upcoming format, just because, like, once again, if Malice gets to play, you lose. I was testing Malice, and this deck literally threw, I'm not joking, 4 board breakers at me. 4. I got hit with Duster, Nadir, Super Poly, and Talons, and somehow they couldn't kill me. Like, how does this deck, like, I'm sorry, this deck is bad. I want to like these cards, but they just don't do enough. I don't think it's it's a Sun deck, so I don't think it's side events tier. It's not like the worst deck ever, but I would play any other deck in this tier before playing Regenesis. Any Regenesis deck. I've seen like some like Regenesis piles with like the new White Forest stuff, and we'll get to White Forest in a bit. But even that is just like, just pack it up, bro. I'm sorry. Sky Striker is going inside events. It's kind of like one of those Labyrinth style decks. Both of these are like the Ryan Yu decks, but it's kind of like Striker, where this deck doesn't really do super well in unsolved formats. You know, you kind of need to tailor your non-engine to beat the best decks. And also, this deck wants to go second as of right now. The new support might change that, but that's not for another couple months. So we can revisit the second Nats, but right now, it's going inside events. Go second decks aren't very good right now. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry to my Striker fans. It's not that good. Speaking of apologies, I'm sorry, Brendan. Vanquish Soul is also going inside events. The new support is very good. You know, this deck looks promising for Nats, but as of right now, it's just going inside events, bro. I have not drawn Raz in like 10 games. I'm sorry. This deck's bad. Snake Guy, also side events. We're hitting the rapid fire side events thing. We'll put this in side events too. Both of these are kind of like, you know, go first combo decks. And honestly, pre-alliance and stuff, this deck's pretty good. But like, you know, this deck's it's just not it. Not right now. OSS is still banned. This deck doesn't do anything. This deck loses to Droll, but is also worse than Mitsurugi. Tenpai, again, going second decks are bad right now. That being said, this deck can still shack the hell out of you. I mean, I play it before Regenesis. I'm gonna be honest, I play it before Regenesis. Probably play it before this. It's like decent, but still not good. There's like the Tenpai Fiendsmith Bestial deck is probably better. I didn't put that on this list, but that probably also goes here. It's like fine, but it would not be my first choice. Pure Ryzeal. I think Pure Ryzeal is kind of bad. You have to play cards like 7th Tachyon and 7th Ascension now, and those cards are really bad into Droll. And if this deck is losing to Droll, then you might as well play this deck because it just has a much higher ceiling. Yeah, I think this deck's bad. It's not like bad. You can still play it. I'd still probably play it before any of these, but like, actually I'd play it before this. Last one, White Forest. So White Forest is another one of those like combo decks that, you know, go first, win. It can kind of go second, but you kind of need this deck is really good in formats where board breakers are good. Because one, you get to recycle them with Diabell, and there's a bunch of cool stuff you get to do with breakers. You get to send them for your White Forest cards. And you know, the new support with this deck is actually really good. You get to ignore Fua for the most part. The problem is that when you get Fua, the board you set up under Fua, even though you give them like 0 draws, you do just lose to a single Dominus Impulse because Vengeance also special summons the monster. So I want to like this deck. It's probably, I'd play it before Blue Eyes. I think it's like, I'd play it before Mitsuru. I don't know. Would I play it before Mitsuru? Would I play White Forest before pure Mitsurugi? They both lose the Droll. Dude, I don't know. It's a tough call. I think I would play this before pure Mitsurugi. This deck is like, it's like fine, but it's like a good choice. I put it in good choice. You can play Phoenix with cards also. Would I play this before Mermail? No, Mermail's better going second. I'd play this before Phoenix with Ryzeal. It's probably not. It's probably somewhere in between this, because Mermail's better at going second even if it's less consistent. This deck can also brick, kind of. Alright, so this is what the standings look like for the tier list here. If you guys think that, maybe I messed up, maybe I missed out on your favorite deck that you'll be bringing to the YCS, or, maybe, I don't know, you think I'm just like crazy or something for putting Vanquish Soul inside of its tier, then leave a comment below, and yeah, I hope you liked this video. I hope to be sort of doing similar styles of videos like this in the future, and yeah, I hope to see you all at YCS Providence if you're going, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye!